Hello, welcome to the show. I'm Jacquelene. You're on A1R Psychic Radio and Moonstruck TV. I'm coming to you live from my office in Melbourne, CBD. I've got a wonderful view today because the sun's out. So I can see like all around Melbourne, all across the bay, all across to the Yang Mountains, and right down as far as Frankston. You can sort of vaguely see that in the background. I've come into my office today to see clients and also obviously to do the show, which sometimes I do from different places. And I've been greeted by, and this is not a product endorsement, but chocolate. Yeah, it's a thing. There is one way to my heart. Well, there's several ways, but one of the most prolific ways probably chocolate. But it's like, you sort of see these ritual books talking about how you might be able to attract the interest of a woman with cheese. I saw this really odd, ridiculous thing about that. And I thought, well, because the cheese apparently causes fascination. For me, it kind of is chocolate. And one time I was actually teaching a class of my psychic students, and we were talking about, creating a protective aura. And this actually goes in line with the sun card that I'm talking about today. When you're feeling enthusiastic about something, you can build that very strong, joyful looking aura, which, can have that golden yellow and these sorts of things in it, but so can higher wisdom and learning. I actually told my students, look, I'm just going to do an exercise and I want you to tell me what you're seeing at the end of it when I sort of, ask for your feedback. And because I was talking about how they could build their own protective aura. And so they saw my aura turning gold and yellow like the sun, and bright gold sort of shimmering around the place and all this sort of thing. And I said, and so I came back and I said, so, that's what you saw, great. How do you think I was achieving that? And they were going, oh, you were calling to your divine self and all this sort of different answers, which are all perfectly reasonable. And I said, no, I was meditating on a Mars bar. And just how enthusiastic I am, because I feel very joyful when thinking Mars bar, because I don't eat it conventionally like I imagine most people do, just chomp, 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 chomp away down the bar. I actually take the chocolate off the top and then off the sides, and then I have the caramel. I know it sounds disgusting, right? And then I have the nougat, and then I eat the rest of the chocolate. I was talking about this in a very meditative fashion, like I was just really enjoying it. And they all just looked at me like I was crackers, and I possibly am. But enthusiasm and protective energy can be created out of anything that you feel joy towards. So if you've got a joyful memory, fantastic. Some people, it might be a Mars bar. There might be other things in their life that weren't so joyful. So for them, a Mars bar might be it. And so when we're looking at the sun card and that sense of illumination and light, and someone was saying before about, do you read off sun sign or star signs? Well, no. What I do when I'm reading for someone is I actually will work, first of all, with a opening and a closing. So for psychics, and talking about, bringing out all that light and exuberance and joy towards people and the learning. And the idea also that we're all the same under the sun's glow. We all get that same chance. Of course, there's different things in life, culturally and socioeconomically, that can make that a bit different, but we can also shine in our own light. But the thing is that I find when working psychically is that I'm using an opening and a closing ritual. For me, that is something that stops me from reading everyone I'm passing in the supermarket quite involuntarily, or seeing someone who's passed over standing next to the trolley bay at Coles and not quite knowing 100% that they're actually a passed over person, thinking maybe are they real or are they not real, because that's how clearly I'm seeing them. So the way that I stop myself from practically going insane with all the things I can see and feel and experience, is to actually create that lock and key. So for me, I'll use a date of birth as an opener. And then when the client leaves, my energy shuts down from them and I send them away with well wishes and everything, but I'm just closing that door so that I don't start reading involuntarily the Uber driver and maybe, blurting out stuff that's highly inappropriate to someone who didn't ask for it. So, permission's always really important, and you'll find that each reader has a different version of a lock and key scenario. So for some people, some psychics might say, could you start with a question? I don't do that. Some people feel that by hearing the respondents and question, and mostly their voice, not so much the question itself even. They start to tune in. Other people will just bang straight in there. I'll pick people out of a crowded audience, and certainly I'd like to thank the people of Warragul this last weekend for such a warm reception and a lot of validation of the readings I did for the audience. I randomly pick people out of the crowd. If I see someone in the crowd in that audience that I know or have read for before and remember having done so, I don't read for them. I might say, hi, I saw you last time, but I will not read for them because the whole point of doing readings in a platform environment is not to fish for information or to go off people you know. And fishing for information, for example, can be the idea of saying something that could be a common theme amongst quite a few audience members and then going to them after that. So, for example, I'm picking up a Billy Bob here. Now, in the southern states of America, that would be quite common. Someone has a Billy Bob here. It's like, yeah, well, not hard. In Australia, it could be someone has a John or someone named Mr. Smith. I mean, it's going to be quite a common set of names here. So when we're looking at the sun card, we're looking at that illumination, everything being shown under it, but also the need at times to kind of find your balance with things. We can kind of get lost in the idea with the sun card of everything just being bright and illuminating and that's all it is, and particularly the spiritual journey. Oh, when I get on my spiritual journey, my life will be really perfect. Well, actually, going on the spiritual journey, you're going to experience a bit of this stuff. So, good old Mr. Devil, Death and the Tower card, because you're going to have to confront the things that is illuminated in the sun. When you cast the sun, you're going to get a shadow. And don't just look at our light. We need to look at our shadow and the things that we are not owning within ourselves to actually, really, transmute and go into a higher form of evolution. And, it's not that our life gets easier, which some people sort of want spirituality to do for them. It's that we can approach our challenges and the things life throws at us in a much more calm way, a maybe realistic way, maybe more resourceful way, and a less hyper-vigilant maybe way, or more of an understanding maybe even of why that person did that thing that they did, even if they don't understand it. Some things can be societal and structural, some things can be life experiences and then the way the person has reacted to that. But in the sun card, it sort of shows all promise. People with a 19-day of birth or the sun card energy strongly in them are actually going to be quite the caregivers, the sharers of energy, the illuminators. They can also be bright and, bubbly most of the time. There's a tendency to want to give that warmth out and affection and that life-giving kind of quality, and to be very kind of into positive exchange and reciprocity. So, that's what I like about that. You sort of see the innocence in the boy riding the horse in the sun card too, like everything's on his side. So if the sun card comes into, a reading, you can kind of see that things, can turn out quite well there. But I would always look at not only the good things in a card, but maybe the challenges in it as well. And to look at, am I only looking for the positive outcomes here? Am I also willing to look into more of the depths of things? Am I sort of just wanting it only to be good news? I think there's really a case for, putting a positive slant on maybe what you're telling someone. As in, here's some positive tools and techniques to deal with what might be a difficult time if they're not going through a sun period and you're actually going through a devil, death or tower kind of moment. But the sun card is like, after all of those things and the star and the moon, then comes the sun. And the sun is at the centre of our solar system, because sun, whereas the moon is what people tend to notice more, because we notice it only a couple of times a month. So everyone goes, the moon is fabulous. And it's like, yeah, you're seeing it because of the sun. It's the sun's energy that's doing that. And it's not that we revolve around the moon. The moon revolves around us. It goes around our orbit, but then we orbit around the sun. So if you think also in the astrology side of things, sun is also to do with Leo. And Leo is the fixed fire sign. So if we think of fixed fire, what in nature would that be, or the world? It's going to be a campfire. So we sort of think of stories around the campfire community and people gravitating towards them. So often Leos can be people that garner people's attention, look at the majority of the actors in the entertainment industry are mostly Leos. Because you got Tom Cruise, who's an Aquarius, and something else entirely. But you sort of have these kind of markers when we're looking at the astrology of things and combining that with the tarot, and then we get the numerology of it, and then you bring in also things like the Kabbalah. So when we're looking at tools and modalities, it's really important not to go, well, I don't really believe anyone who uses XYZ modality because that's crap. And it's like, yeah, do you know what? It's just that you don't relate to it at this time. You might never. It might not be for you. Maybe you don't understand it. It's always interesting when people are a bit poo-hooing of astrology, for example. It actually takes a hell of a lot of understanding to write an astrology column, and it takes no knowledge at all to read it. And to try and create something accurate for all of that sign is actually quite challenging. You can certainly get a lot more the further you delineate. I think you could sort of say what your views on astrology are after studying it for 3 years, which is the minimum. That's when you've only started to finish learning the start. Then after that, you can keep going, because you've got their sun, you've got their moon, you've got all the other planets, you've got a few asteroids that are kind of rather important as well that can really tip the meaning of a chart. If you just look at the planets, some chart that might not make a lot of sense until you add the asteroids in. Like the author Barbara Cartland, you don't see everything until you look at the asteroids in her chart to actually get the full picture of how she was actually quite a famous romance novelist. And you actually see a lot of her stuff actually in the asteroids. So when you're looking at any modality and going, well, I'm going to view this modality or that modality this way based on my opinion, it might not be through having enough knowledge about that modality to actually really judge it. And I think the thing you can say, though, is I'm not really drawn to that. That's fine. That's not really a problem at all. It's just when we form judgments on things we don't understand that, we're kind of letting ourselves down because we might be missing out on something rather special. That's being me and the Sun card for now. Next time I'm going to be on out in public is going to be at Bunjil Place in Narre Warren, 4th of December. In the meantime, I'm going to come back next week, do some more walking through the Major Arcana and other things. Catch you later. More shows coming on A1R and Moonstruck TV. See you for now.